As you guys know, UFC Fight Night Diego Lopes versus Gene Silva will be coming up very soon, and this fight night will be taking place in San Antonio, Texas on September 13th, which is going to be Mexican Independence Day. And this fight night card is looking to be a little bit weaker compared to previous fight night cards. Of course, the last fight night card in France, that card absolutely over delivered. I would give it like a 9.5 out of 10 when it comes to the entertainment value of that card. But this card, it might look like a step down in quality when you compare it to the Fight Night in Paris, France. But I do think it has the same amount of potential to be a very entertaining card. There's a lot of Latin fighters that are going to be fighting on this card, and of course, it's fitting for Mexican Independence Day, but we all know that fighters around that region, they're really entertaining, and I can't wait to see the outcomes of some of these fights. So in this video, I'm going to be giving you guys my predictions for every single fight happening on this card. So without further ado, let's hop right into my predictions. Opening up the card, we have Rodrigo Cezinando versus Danil Doncheco, and I'm going to be picking Danil Doncheco to win by a TKO. Next up, we have Alice Pereira versus Montserrat Rendon, and I'm going to be picking Alice Pereira to win by a decision. Next up, we have Alessandro Costa versus Alden Correa, and I'm going to be picking Alessandro Costa to win by a decision. Moving up to the middleweight division, we have Zach Reese versus Cedricus Dumas, and I'm going to be picking Zach Reese to win by a TKO. Moving up the card, we have Jesus Aguilar versus Luis Garul, and I think Jesus Aguilar is going to win this fight by a decision. Next up in the women's strawweight division, we have Tatiana Suarez versus Amanda Lemos, and I think Tatiana Suarez is going to win this fight by decision. I can see her just dominating her with her wrestling and just winning a easy 30-27 decision that way. Next up, we have Claudio Puelles versus Joaquim Silva, and I think Claudio Puelles is going to win this fight by a submission. Next up in, I believe, the middleweight division, we have Jose Medina versus Dusko Todorovic, and I think Dusko Todorovic is going to win this fight by a decision. Opening the main card, we have Santiago Luna versus Kwang Lee, and I think Kwang Lee is going to win this fight by a decision. Next up in the lightweight division, we have Alexander Hernandez versus Diego Ferreira, and I think Alexander Hernandez is going to win this fight by decision. It's crazy that Alexander is like turning around this fast. I believe he's just coming off of that win against Chase Hooper like a month ago. So it's crazy that he's turning around this fast for another matchup against a very tough lightweight in Diego Ferreira. But like I said, I think he's going to win this fight by a decision. Next up in the middleweight division, we have Kelvin Gastelum versus Dustin Stoltzfus, and I think Kelvin Gastelum is going to win this fight by decision. Now for the feature fight of the card, we have Jared Gordon versus Rafa Garcia, and I see Jared Gordon winning this fight by TKO. Jared Gordon, he's on a bit of a hot streak right now. He just KO'd Thiago Moises, which is a good win in the lightweight division, and I think he's going to KO Rafa Garcia in this matchup. Next up in the bantamweight division, we have Rob Font versus David Martinez. This fight was originally supposed to be Rob Font versus Raul Rosas Jr., but Raul, he had to pull out for a injury, I believe, and there's been a short notice replacement, which will be David Martinez, and I think Rob Font is going to win this fight by a crafty decision like always. And now for the main event, we have Diego Lopes versus Gene Silva. And I did a dedicated breakdown video for this matchup, and in that video, I concluded that Gene Silva was going to win this fight because he's a way better, more technical striker, and Diego Lopes, he kind of just pushes forward and he plays into that counter-striking style of Gene Silva. However, I'm going to go out on a limb here, and I think I'm going to pick Diego Lopes. So I'm going to be changing my pick to Diego Lopes. The more I think about it, I was looking at the rankings, and especially after this weekend when two fighting nerds lost, Mauricio Rufy, he kind of got fraud checked. It wasn't that bad. He did lose by submission. Yeah, he got finished. But I think the fighting nerds, their style is kind of getting a tiny bit exposed. They're kind of vulnerable to being, I'm not going to say they clip farm in their fights, but they definitely focus on the aesthetics of their performances rather than the fundamentals. And when you think about it, Gene Silva, he's kind of the same way. He's very aesthetically pleasing to like casual fans. But when you look at the actual fundamentals of fighting, Gene Silva, I do think that he has very good fundamentals. And honestly, out of the four fighting nerds that were coming up in the UFC, I do think that Gene Silva, he's the most likely to get a belt. So this pick could definitely backfire on me. But I think Diego Lopes, he has the toughness, he has the power and ability. I can see him hurting Gene Silva. And with his grappling, I can see him neutralizing that striking threat of Gene Silva. Gene Silva, in a lot of his fights, he has a very good size advantage. He had that size advantage over Bryce Mitchell. That's why Bryce Mitchell wasn't able to enforce the grappling like he wanted to. Bryce Mitchell, he's currently in the bantamweight division. He's a 135er. So Gene Silva, in that matchup, he was easily able to defend the takedowns just because he was stronger than Bryce Mitchell. Diego Lopes, on the other hand, he's a huge featherweight. He can easily be fighting at lightweight. I don't think it's possible for Diego Lopes to make 135. So I think Diego Lopes, he's going to wade forward, and I can see him hurting Gene Silva. Gene Silva, he might be able to tag Diego Lopes, but can he put him away? I don't think Gene Silva can put away Diego Lopes. And with the grappling threat, I can see Diego Lopes winning this fight by a decision. Maybe a late round TKO. We've never seen Gene Silva go to the fifth round. And Diego Lopes, he can be that person to push him to his limits. And I can see like a fourth or fifth round TKO, but for my official pick, I'm going to be picking Diego Lopes to win this fight by a decision. Like I mentioned plenty of times in that video, Diego Lopes is my favorite fighter in the featherweight division. I'm really rooting for him to win this matchup. This will be a huge win on Diego Lopes' resume, and that'll really make him a actual serious featherweight contender. And if Diego Lopes beats Gene Silva, that'll be a great bounce back fight after losing the title fight against Alexander Volkanovski, one of the greatest fighters of all time. So, like I said, I'm going to be switching my pick to Diego Lopes by decision. But anyways, that's going to be it for this video, and I'll catch you guys in my next video.